right. Good morning, everybody. We are about to start, and we are going to look at exploring online proctoring in Oklahoma higher education. And the presenters for this one are going to be Amanda Kesey, Margot Gregory, Simon Ringsmith, and myself. We are on two of the Cole Advanced Technologies and LMS and Tools committees. And we had a panel discussion earlier here a few weeks ago. And so we're going to discuss a little bit of that today. And so I'm going to let Simon start, and he can get us started here this morning.
Thanks, Alicia, and thanks everyone for being here. I can't emphasize this enough. This whole thing is a team effort. This would not have ever happened if it were just one person, and that team effort made the end result so much better than it would have been otherwise. And so everything that you're seeing here today is the result of a lot of collaboration among several people here. Just to kind of give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about this morning, we'll spend a little while. The basic idea is we're going to talk about the panel discussion that we had. And like Alicia said, it was about a month ago, and we covered a lot of things in that panel discussion. And so we're kind of giving you all almost like a summary of what we learned in the panel discussion, as well as kind of a peek behind the curtain of some of the things that we learned putting the panel discussion together, and some survey data results. So we're going to discuss proctoring in Oklahoma higher education. It's not a fancy topic. It's not like AI and all these other buzzwords, but it's something that almost every institution deals with. And we wanted to have this panel discussion because it's such an important topic, even though it's not a fancy buzzword topic. Everyone's dealing with online proctoring. So we wanted to put a panel discussion together. We wanted to get industry expert perspectives from people who are in the trenches with online proctoring, as well as some legal perspectives on online proctoring. We'll also look at some of the things that the panelists talked about regarding future improvements to proctoring and online proctoring best practices, as well as some survey results to kind of tell you, here's what we learned after doing this panel discussion and sending out a survey. And it's also worth noting, we had 60 people attend the panel discussion, and it was a 2-hour session. And those 60 people, and I was watching that view count. We really did have 60 people, and they stayed. It was a 2-hour discussion, and we learned a little bit about the length. So maybe it could have been a little shorter just for engagement purposes, but people were interested in this topic. And that 60 participants, that was steady for almost the entire 2 hours. So this is a really important topic, and a lot of people are really wanting to learn more about this. One thing that kind of a big picture takeaway is that proctoring not only safeguards the credibility of the examination process, but it ensures that students are assessed fairly and accurately. And when we think about proctoring, we often think about it in these punitive terms, like we're going to punish you if you for any proctoring infraction, and it's almost like this iron fist approach. But that's really not the case. Like we heard that time and again from the panelists and from all the input we gathered during this session, is that this proctoring, it's a way to help everybody. And online classes could require students to go to a testing center, but that's impractical. So this proctoring, this like ProctorU and these other tools, they're really designed to help make sure that students are being assessed fairly and accurately. So that's kind of a theme that we'll revisit throughout this session. Just this idea of helping people understand why we're doing this. And I think at the end of the day, like, it'd be nice if we didn't have to do any proctoring, but that's not the reality that we live in. And so a lot of institutions are just trying to figure out how to do this fairly and accurately, so that students are assessed fairly and accurately. There's a big market. There's a big need for online proctoring right now. This chart shows the market for online proctoring, for exam proctoring, and we can see that it's just going up and up and up. And so it's not like it's not plateauing. If your institution's not currently using some sort of online proctoring tool, probably will, especially with AI coming in. It's really important that we assess students fairly and accurately. And so if we have students do a written portion of a test, we need to make sure they're actually writing. And AI, if anything, it's going to increase the reliance on online proctoring. And it's just a valuable tool that we have. So let's talk about some of the legal issues that we learned from the session. This is really fascinating. This is about the first half hour or so of the panel discussion. We had Doug Miller. He's the director of operations and compliance at UCO. And he talked a lot about the legal perspective, specifically with a case involving Ogletree versus Cleveland State University. And if you want to hear more about the legal perspectives of online proctoring, if you're trying to answer questions about this from your faculty, look up this case, Ogletree versus Cleveland State University. And he talked a lot about what we've learned about online proctoring from a legal perspective using this particular case as an example. And his big takeaway, well, basically Ogletree was a student at Cleveland State University, and he was asked to do a room scan before a test. And he said it violated his Fourth Amendment rights. And the court ruled that the search was unreasonable and unconstitutional. And a lot of people end it there and they say, well, see, I told you proctoring is a violation of my Fourth Amendment. But Doug Miller was really, he really stressed that there's more to the case than that. And so it's not a simple solution. It's not like we can say, well, see, that Ogletree case, see, online proctoring is unconstitutional. No. There's a lot more to it. So we have to dig deeper. And that was one of the things he kept on going back to. Like, there's more to the story in any given case. In this one, Ogletree had some unique facts, like the room scan was visible to other students, and that's not good. The remote test was a student's only option, so there was no option for an in-person test. No one told the proctor that the room scan was not required, so there was bad communication. Cleveland State University kind of backed themselves into a corner. And so if your university is thinking about online proctoring and some legal issues, it's important that you don't look at one case and say, well, we're gonna only read part of this case and use that as the basis for whether or not we can do this. In a sense, the courts actually ruled that room scans can be done as long as they're reasonable. And we see that, or Doug brought that up many times. His kind of takeaways were that universities should minimize the extent of the privacy interest affected. Give notice, so let students know what's going on, get their consent, and provide alternatives. And that's really important, that we are finding ways to provide alternatives if there's a reasonable objection to online proctoring, and have written policies that are consistently enforced. And so if you're trying to decide, well, can we use ProctorU or Examity? One thing that helps is have a written policy that's enforced across the board for these online proctoring tools. He also said that biometrics will be more important in the coming years. And biometrics just means, like, when you hold up your phone to your face and it scans your face, or you do the thumbprint, things like that. Those are biometrics, and that's going to be more prominent. So keep an eye out for that. And he also stressed that there's no federal standards for a lot of this. And that's one thing that we kept on coming back to in terms of the legal issues on online proctoring. There's not a lot of broad sweeping legal precedent set at a federal level for this. Then we also got some input from Tracy Fairless. She's the director of e-learning at UCO. And she had, as far as the current state of online proctoring, she had some really good things to say based on her experience. She said to start out small to work out the kinks. So if you're thinking about implementing one of these proctoring tools, don't do it university-wide, do it in one class or one section of a class, and then work out the kinks. She echoed the idea of creating a university-wide policy statement regarding academic integrity, and she recommended putting a proctoring statement on each LMS class homepage. So in OSU uses Canvas, and there's like a default homepage, and for us, we would put a policy statement right on that homepage and even in the syllabus. Have a system in place to address issues rapidly. And this was really, I thought that was one of her key points that really stood out to me, was make sure that you've got a team ready to go. some sort of processes in place so that if a student objects, you can deal with it and not shut it down like an iron fist. But if a student has an issue, that we address the issue and we work with that student to get that figured out. She stressed that success comes down to communication. And this is a really big point for anything related to online proctoring. She said she had 5 key takeaways. Stay aware of legal considerations. Establish close relationships with the proctoring provider. And this is something that is not always brought up, but she stressed that they had monthly meetings with ProctorU, which is their proctoring provider. So there's a really good back and forth with her university and the proctoring team so that everyone is kind of on the same page about things. Communicate expectations and procedures clearly and often. Provide timely responses, like have that team in place, have those processes in place, and also keep the cost low for students. That's a really important one too. And one thing that she stressed is help the students understand why we're doing this. If students think that there's an antagonistic relationship, like we're going into this thinking everyone's going to cheat and we're just going to punish everyone, then they're going to butt heads with us. Instead, help students understand that we're all in this together and we're not accusing you of cheating. We're just trying to make sure that everyone is assessed accurately and fairly. So it's not a punishment. We're just trying to work through this together in a way that's easy and fair for everyone, and really stress that for the students. Then we had the panel discussion. And this is where we just got input from a variety of people who are dealing with online proctoring. So we had Dana Lindenberget from Rose State. She's the director of faculty training and support, or she gave us the faculty and training support perspective. Margot, who's on this meeting here from Cameron, to give us kind of a well-rounded perspective. Terry Quinn, to give us the perspective of someone who is in a testing center dealing with this, and Melissa Bravetti from the faculty and regents perspective. And we got some good takeaways from that I want to share with you before turning you over to Alicia to go over the survey results. So the common theme here in the panel discussion was the goal is to minimize cheating, even if we know it will never be eliminated, and make the process easy for faculty and students. And this is one thing that's really important to know, is that we can't put this huge burden on faculty members. They are subject matter experts in their particular area, but they don't know how to run proctoring software. So we got to help the faculty member through this and help the students through this. Maintain consistency across the institution, and also these sentiments were echoed across the panel. Establish relationships with faculty and students. Let people know that you are on their side, and it's not a punishment. We're just trying to make sure everyone is assessed fairly, that we have a good way of doing this. So if you're an online student, we're not going to make you go to a testing center. We're going to just ask that you do this one, install the Proctor software, and here's exactly what it does and exactly why we're doing it. And also to use academic integrity incidents as teachable moments. One thing that we learned in the panel discussion was that it's not a binary system. Often the system will flag something like, hey, we at 45 minutes into the test, something happened. You should take a look at it. And turns out it's a dog wandered into the camera or something like that. And so use these things as teachable moments. And again, the success of an online proctoring initiative, this is echoed across the panel. It all comes down to communication. Good communication helps set expectations and also helps with ethical considerations too. So at the beginning of a class, students need to know what they're getting into and put on the syllabus. Here's the proctoring service we're using. Here's why we're using it. Here's how we can deal with issues that come up, and help students know that it's not a punishment. We just got to make sure tests are fair. And also offer proctoring alternatives. So if someone really objects, that's fine. Here's a couple alternatives. You can go to a testing center, you can come into campus, whatever it might be. And that reasonable alternative helps with the legal considerations as well. So if we go back to that Ogletree case from the beginning, if they had offered a reasonable alternative, they could have saved themselves a lot of hot water. Also, this is kind of interesting from the panel discussion. Students need a laptop, not just a phone. And it should be something besides a Chromebook, because Chromebooks don't always run the same software that you need to do the proctoring. Students might not know this. So students might show up to class, they got their Chromebook because they use a Chromebook in high school, and it's not working right, and they don't know until the day of the test. So we've got to communicate these things proactively and effectively with students. Also, one final thing that we learned, some computers have restrictions, like you'll go and buy a Windows laptop at Best Buy for $499, and it will be Windows S mode, which means it's very limited in terms of the software that can be installed on it. These are the kind of things that are going to come up on test day, and they cause you hassles. So if you're going to do proctoring, make sure to have that good communication, all these things we talked about, but the panel also recommended having some sort of test, like a syllabus quiz or something, the first week of the class, just to make sure everyone is on board and can understand how to use the proctoring software. Now I'm going to turn over Alicia, and while you're talking, I'll advance the slides for you. Alicia, I think you're muted.
So we're just going to talk about the survey results a little bit because we got some valuable feedback and insight from the attendees about the panel. So the first thing we're going to talk about is whether or not the people that attended found the content to be informative. And this was a Likert scale, 1 to 5 Likert scale, and they rated it 1 being not well and 5 being very well. And so most of the attendees found the content to be informative. They found that the panel allowed for this open discussion and this opportunity for the audience to participate. And the panel discussed whether or not there was a need for state level expectations for exam proctoring. And most of the panel talked about how that really needed to be left up to the institution and to the professor and to the individuals, because there is such a difference in the subject areas and what the students need area by area. And so they really discussed this in depth and decided that they didn't think that there needed to be a state level expectation. Yeah, so the next thing they talked about is whether or not there was a skepticism about the effectiveness of online proctoring, about the fact whether or not that students are going to find a way to cheat regardless. Just a few minutes ago, we were in an AI section of this, and Laura Duman was talking about that there actually isn't an uptick in cheating, that students are just finding various ways to cheat. And so the panel also discussed this. What should institutions consider regarding proctoring solutions with students or with disabilities or accessibility issues? And we can send out the link to the recording to this again. We can probably put it in the chat here in just a minute and send this out if you would really like to go back and watch this, because there was a lot of important information that was given by the panelists. The panel also addressed whether or not proactive measures for institutions to address ethical concerns surrounding online proctoring, including students' discomfort with monitoring during exams, discrepancies between proctored exams and open note policies, and accommodations for students with diverse needs, if that was addressed. And again, the participants scored the panel very, very well, and they thought that that was addressed very well. The next thing, after participating in the proctoring panel, we wanted to know how important that people thought that the proctoring product addressed different things like the issues of cheating and academic dishonesty, how important that they thought specific features or capabilities were in those products, and how the relationship between instructors and students were affected by these products. And so in all of these situations, everyone thought that these were affected, very, very well, and that the academic integrity was ensured by using these products, and that the products addressed issues of cheating and academic dishonesty. And then the next thing was that everybody addressed, or that everybody talked about, is whether or not they found information from the panel to be important enough to attend another one. Simon, can you advance it to the next one? Would you attend another one? So we've had another one in the past, and it was the esports panel. And everybody seemed to really get a lot of good information from it. And we did a survey after that particular panel, and everybody found it very informative. And so that's why we chose to do another one of these. And so again, we received very positive feedback on this. And I want to give everybody a few minutes to ask questions, or for Margot or Amanda to also provide any additional information that they would like to about the panel, because Amanda asked the questions to the panelists, and Margot was a panelist. And if you guys have any questions about online proctoring, we allowed 2 hours for it, and everybody thought that it was just about the right amount of time.
And then I'm also real quick sharing a link in the chat to Dana Lindenberget had a file, a PDF that she has, which is alternatives online proctoring. And so she provided that during the panel discussion. So we want to provide that for you all here as well. And the link is in chat.
Thank you, Simon and Alicia. You really captured the essence of that panel discussion well. And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I really found it, even though I was a panelist, I also found it very informative. I brought back some really good information from it, and perspectives from the other panelists. So if you did not get the chance to attend at the time, I would recommend that you watch the recording. I know it was pretty long, but there was some great information that came out from the various panelists.
Yeah, do we have the link to the recording? I don't. I have it in my email somewhere, and so I can dig around for it. And I should have.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for to get it.
That's one of those things where I'm just going to stop the sharing here so we can all see each other. Yeah, of all the things we did to prepare for today, I forgot to think about we should provide a link to the recording of the session. It really was good, and I can't stress enough how important the collaboration, the teamwork element was. If we've done a couple of these panel discussions now, and the importance of teamwork cannot be overstated in terms of planning them and putting them together. It also just makes it more fun. I have a really good time doing these. And they don't have to be these panel discussions, the ones that we've done, like on esports. They don't have to be the big, fancy, high visibility topics of the day, like AI or electric cars or stuff like that. Online proctoring is, it's just something that everybody has to deal with. And we've discovered that people are hungry for this information. Yeah, I'm looking.
I just put the link to the recording in the chat.
Oh, good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
One of the things that I found really helpful in the panel discussion was the different ways universities handled proctoring, because there was quite a bit of diversity in that area.
Yeah, I agree, Margot. Well,
Yeah.
thanks everyone for coming. I think
We are
we have
at our
25
time.
minutes. Yep. So I really appreciate it. And
We'll make sure to, let's see, do we have examples of syllabus statements and or language used on the LMS homepage? It's always helpful to know what other institutions are doing. Margot also makes a good point. Should we consider sharing perspectives on proctoring? Yeah, I think it's good that everybody shares different perspectives on it, and that we learn from each other. Absolutely. And that's kind of during the panel discussion, I think that's what a lot of it was about, was learning from each other. So thank you all for attending. Make sure and go to several of the other sessions this afternoon, and don't forget about the sessions that are offered tomorrow. So see you guys later.